Planning a 2-week road trip around New Zealand can be really overwhelming, especially because there's just so many beautiful places to see. So here is the video that I wish that I could find before I went on my own trip. Here are the topics we're going to be discussing along with the timestamps if you want to skip over all of my talking. So let's begin first with the seasons. New Zealand being on the southern hemisphere means that all of the seasons will be opposite to all of the northern hemisphere, obviously. So here are all of the seasons along with the rough temperatures. Each season is so incredibly beautiful in its own way, and there's a number of different activities that you can do based on the time of the year that you're there. We visited New Zealand in May, so that's end of autumn kind of season, just getting into winter. So it meant that things were pretty chilly in the nighttime and in the morning, but really comfortable in the daytime. And because it was the super low season of the year, it meant that we got to plan everything really last minute, and there was always a few extra places available, even if we book things like the day of. Some of the popular campsites like Milford Sound, for example, there's only one of them in that whole area, means that you may have to book them like sometimes a week or so in advance in the high season, but in the low season we booked ours the night before, I think, and there were still other spots available that night. But when I go back, I think I definitely want to try the summer season so I can just swim absolutely everywhere. So it really depends what you want to be doing in New Zealand, but basically it's beautiful all year round. The next topic is transport. Christchurch is the largest city on the South Island, so assuming that you're going to be flying into there, you can just rent a car or a camper van from the airport or from somewhere nearby. Now, there is a reason that camper vans are so popular in New Zealand, and that's just because there's a lot of infrastructure, camping sites, and things in place that makes camping really easy in New Zealand. Now, if you watch my videos, you probably already know that I'm a big fan of combining transport and accommodation in the form of like some kind of camper van or like an overlanding car like I've got. And the main reason I love it so much is just because I'm really disorganized. I like to be really flexible and plan things on the fly so I can stay in a place if I really like it or just keep driving to the next spot. I don't have to plan my accommodation ahead of time. There are a lot of different camper van companies to choose from in New Zealand. I've personally only had experience with Juicy, not in New Zealand, but in the States. It wasn't a great experience with them, if I'm honest, but I don't know, there is a lot of them around and they've got some very competitive prices, so you can go with them if you want to. But the company that I went with is from Matt and Dan's Camper Vans, and I have nothing but amazing praises to sing of them. It was literally the most perfect van I've ever used in my life. It's just run by a couple of guys that are just really good at doing beautiful, sleek, minimal, wonderful designed camper vans. The van that we were using is called the Big Eats, but their small van is surprisingly a very competitive price compared to all of the other options on the market. One thing that you should know before renting a camper van is that there are a lot of really great free campsites all over New Zealand, but they're only free to people that have a what's called certified self-contained vehicle, which just means that it's got a toilet on board. New Zealand was having problems with people like pooping and peeing everywhere and leaving like toilet paper and stuff like that. Now they have said that they will only allow you to camp at these cheap or completely free campsites because sometimes they don't have toilets at the campsite, so they want to make sure that you're able to look after yourself in your own camper van. So yes, luckily our van of course is self-certified, which meant that we could go to any of the campsites all over New Zealand. The best app to use is called CamperMate, and it will show you all of the paid campsites as well as the free ones, and there's comment sections, people can update it. You can find showers on there, dump stations, all kinds of really helpful information. So yeah, make sure if you're going to rent any camper van, make sure that it's self-certified so you can save a lot of money by not having to pay at any of campsites that you go to. Speaking of cost, this is the next topic. If you're from the US, then lucky you, because your dollar is very strong against the New Zealand dollar and all of the others. But for the rest of us, it kind of seems to be a little bit expensive sometimes. Petrol was one of the really surprising expenses for us. Luckily, our van that we were using is diesel, just another reason that it was amazing and perfect. So we only paid about 170 cents per litre, but for regular unleaded petrol, that will cost you about 280 cents per litre. I would highly recommend using the Gasly app, where it helps you find, all of the different prices in your area, and it saved us a bunch of money. Eating out at restaurants can be very expensive sometimes. It's all subjective, but compared to what I'm used to here in Japan, of course, there was the famous $35 pad thai incident that was in Lake Tekapo. It's a touristy area, obviously. Quite expensive, very surprising, which is pretty much the main reason why we just cooked everything inside our van from there on. Groceries vary widely in price, but we overall spent about $350 to $400 on groceries for our whole 2-week trip, maybe even longer than that because we were there for a little bit longer without the camper van. But yeah, roughly. Oh, my light's broken. No. Okay, we're back. The average price for a 2-berth smaller camper van will cost you about $1,470 in the low season or $3,430 in the high season with insurance for 2 weeks. Do keep in mind though that sometimes these companies will try to squeeze every last dollar out of you and charge for silly things like a GPS or the ability to plug things in inside, or sometimes turning on the heaters, which is something that actually happened to my friend. I thought that was absolutely insane that they would charge extra to turn on the heaters. But yeah, Matt and Dan's camper vans, they didn't charge us for anything extra. They even had things like cooking oil and laundry detergent and stuff like that. It was all inclusive, also including insurance. And yeah, on average, a DOC or Department of Conservation campsite, they will cost you around $6 to $10 a night. Non-powered at a holiday park are $10 to $15, and powered sites are around $15 to $40. Like I said before, the most you'll ever pay will be at Milford Sound Lodge, which will be $70 to $90 depending on the season. But please trust me when I say it is 100% worth it. More on that later. For a 2-week car rental, on average, it'll cost you around $630 in low season and $980 in high season for a small, cheap car with insurance for 2 weeks. The average cost for hotels in New Zealand are roughly $106 per night, but obviously most of the cheaper hotels will be in the city, and you probably won't be in the cities very often. So places like Lake Tekapo, for example, the average is around $200. Or if you want to stay at Milford Sound, again, there's only one lodge there and they charge $755 a night. Yeah. So camper van is obviously a lot cheaper for that. So putting all of these costs together to an extremely rough average, it comes down to camper vans costing $2,611 and a car rental plus hotels costing $3,325 for 2 people for 2 weeks with insurance. Now, obviously, if you're not gonna have a camper van, you probably aren't gonna be cooking much at hotels, meaning that you'll eat out more often, which will cost you a lot more money. But if you have a camper van, it's gonna take more petrol. So it's, you know, it's a bit of a way up, but overall it's cheaper to go with a camper van rather than cars and hotels. Obviously, the van lifestyle isn't for everybody. So, you know, these are just the basic costs. It really depends on the time of the year, but yeah, hopefully it's helpful in kind of helping you decide and seeing what a rough kind of budget will get you. All right, now to the good stuff. So Chris and I completely messed up our plans because we decided that we were gonna go northwest up towards the upper coastline of the South Island. And by day 2, we realized that the good weather window that was supposed to be going over Mount Cook, Aoraki National Park area, which we really wanted, was only going to be in a couple of days' time, and then it was going to be rainy for the rest of it. So we changed our plans completely and we booked it all the way around to Lake Pukaki. And I'm really glad that we did, but it did mean that it was a really inefficient way to get there. On the way there though, we did manage to see the Devil's Punch Bowl waterfalls, Hoki Tika Gorge, Blue Pools Track, and Fantail Falls, which were all absolutely stunning half-day trips with a pretty easy hike to get to the viewpoint. My favorite out of all of them has to be the Blue Pools Track because it was just unbelievably beautiful even in the rain when we were there. However, unfortunately, because we were in such a rush, it meant that we didn't get to see Franz Josef or Fox Glacier. But yes, in case you're wondering, it is a regret of mine. From Lake Pukaki, we headed towards Mount Cook and we stayed overnight at the White Horse Hill campsite, which made it really, really easy to get an early start on the day because it's right at the base. We ended up hiking up to Sealy Tarn's viewpoint, and oh my gosh, this was a real highlight to our trip. I cannot recommend this hike enough. It was only, I think, like 5.5 kilometers there and back, and roughly a 3 to 4 hour return hike. We ended up staying for way longer than that though, because it was just so perfect. It was just the most perfect view I've ever seen in my life, I think. The other easier hike in the area is called the Hooker Valley Track. This is the one that everybody does. It's a 10-kilometer return walk, but it's all on pretty flat, very well paved roads, so it's a quite easy hike to do. This one is also really, really beautiful, but the day that I went there, it was raining, and I think it really made me super appreciative of the clear weather day that we had earlier, and I would highly recommend trying to plan around the weather to make sure that you're at this area on a clear day. You really just can't beat those views. From there, we drove to Queenstown, checking out the Kawarau Gorge Suspension Bridge, which is a spot that you can go bungee jumping from, which we were thinking of doing, but it was kind of bad weather on our day, so they weren't even open that day. Queenstown is an absolutely crazy, freaking beautiful, insane town that has become somewhat of a hub for travelers because you can book a lot of the adventure experiences and skiing and whatnot from Queenstown. From there, we once again hauled our asses all the way to Milford Sound in Fiordland National Park. We actually planned to come here on a day that I thought it was going to be really rainy, which is actually a good thing in Milford because like all of the extra water, it just pours down the cliff face and it just looks like there's 1,000 waterfalls in the area. But accidentally, surprisingly, it was a really beautiful, clear, blue sky day. And yeah, so that's how we accidentally ended up with the second best weather condition in Milford Sound. People are not exaggerating when they say it's just heaven on earth. Taking a cruise here is always the thing to do, and there's a few different companies all offering pretty much the same thing for a very similar $100 price tag. It was worth the price tag, just a great way to see the fjords. Although next time I think I will just say it, I'm just gonna splurge and book a $500 helicopter flight because it's so expensive, but I feel like it would be worth it. In a place like that, I will pay big bucks for a helicopter flight. I have a few regrets about my time in New Zealand, and that is one of them. Oh, and I almost forgot, in Milford Sound, that's where you can see a lot of kia birds, which are the wonderful, beautiful, really cheeky, really smart parrots that are the only parrots in the world, apparently, that live in an alpine environment. But they will like tear the, what's that called? Like the windshield wipers and like any like rubber things off the car. They'll do a lot of that, so just keep an eye out. But they're really cheeky. I like the kias. The kias were great. From Milford Sound, we took it real easy and we made our way down to Dunedin, which is a beautiful little coastal town with crazy hills and crazy views of their beach. I really like Dunedin actually. And they have Baldwin Street, which is the steepest road in the world. I made a whole like YouTube short and TikTok and Instagram reel about it. And it's my most controversial video of all time. So a round of applause to Baldwin Street for all of the engagement. It's such an impressive street. It's like it's really hard to capture it in camera, but it is incredibly steep, very impressive. Yeah, I really enjoyed Baldwin Street. From there, we made our way to a town called Oamaru and we saw the little blue penguin colony, and it was absolutely adorable. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to take any videos inside the experience area, but we did see a couple of little penguins walking out in the town, so I managed to get a couple of videos of them. Personally, I'm very sensitive and overly aware of animal experiences for tourists, but luckily because this is a conservation project, they actually have a couple of control enclosures or boxes, like the places that they come and nest in other areas of the city, just so that they can really keep tabs on whether or not their presence being there is harming or helping their environment. And they've actually found that the number of penguins in their colony has grown so much more than the other ones. So yeah, they're definitely helping, and all of the money that you are spending to go and see the penguins and all of that, it's going to help increase the numbers and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was a really special, wonderful experience and I really enjoyed it. And from there, since we had completely messed up our itinerary, we still had a day or two left, so we really wanted to go and see Lake Tekapo. So we headed all the way back up northwest to spend a day there, and we soaked in the Tekapo hot springs. Due to me being absolutely spoiled for choice for hot springs here in Japan, I will say that it seemed very expensive for the experience that it was. I still really enjoyed it and it was lovely, and we got to gaze up at the beautiful stars at nighttime as well. I would highly recommend doing that. I think just because it was such a big pool, and they paint the bottom of it blue like it's a swimming pool, it kind of just felt like I was just swimming in a bath. I don't know, I'm spoiled for choices here in Japan, but people watch my videos know I'm in Japan, so I had to give my 2 cents. But I would recommend it to other people. It was a lovely way to kind of soak and chill and that kind of thing. We went to this chapel that's quite famous for photographers, and we took a couple of night shots, and I just don't think I'll ever top this for night photography. It was so beautiful. And from there, we just headed back to Christchurch. As you can see from from our itinerary, yeah, wasn't very efficient. But because we were prioritizing good weather in certain places at certain times, I don't regret doing that. But yes, here are my recommendations for how to do a more efficient itinerary. I'd be seeing all of like similar places, but I would also add in a helicopter flight to either Milford Sound or Doubtful Sound, which is a spot that is much less accessible than Milford Sound, but it's apparently just as beautiful. I would also add Wanaka to the list, which we did drive through at nighttime though, so we didn't really get to see it. And also Roy's Peak is a really popular, famous hike in the area, and I have major regrets for not going on that hike. Damn it! It's got like beautiful 360 panoramic views from the top, and I'm quite sad. We really wanted to do a wine tasting experience because New Zealand's very famous for wine, and I like red wine, but because you can't drive once you've drunk, it made the logistics with a van quite difficult, and we just didn't have enough time to stay an extra night in that area, so we had to miss it. These are the two wineries that were recommended to me by a New Zealand local. They're called Amesfield Restaurant and Cellar Door and Mount Difficulty Wines. I've actually made a private Google map with all of my pins of all the places that we went to and all the places that we wanted to go to. So yeah, I'll leave the link for that in the description down below. If you found that this was helpful to you in any way, please leave a comment and a like down below. That would be great. And if you've watched this video all the way through till now, I really hope that that means that you enjoyed it. And if that is the case, if you wouldn't mind doing me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button. That's a great way that you can support me. Thank you so much to Matt and Dan's Campervans for lending us your van. It was truly an amazing van, and I can't recommend it enough. So I'll leave the link for them in the description down below. Yes, I think that's all. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.